record. Alright, we're recording, and then I'm going to start audio feed. Are you done? Can you stop? Okay. We are on bathroom hold. T-minus 2 minutes.
I've had so much coffee for it.
So, if you were completely a-religious,
That's awesome. I love it.
Do they know about that?
Does he know about what?
Those other people. What people?
Could you be less vague? Do the other people know about
That works now.
Oh, no, I haven't told anybody. I would be. I'd like to be less helpful. We've got like audio into the board and CDs, players.
I don't know that those work yet.
They can. Well, one can work.
No, I haven't.
I've got them unplugged, but I can plug them back in.
No, I don't want to test it right now.
Well, no, I'm not worried about it because that's self-censored. We are on J bathroom hold. Please stand by. There's 5 people in the chat room, and they all want to know, you know.
How
How'd it go, Jay?
It went. All right, I'm ready.
Did you flush?
I did.
Hello, Rachel. Welcome back. All right, we ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right.
So, if you were completely a-religious, completely atheistic, but you wanted to have a free country and you wanted to have it safe and protected, then it would sound like, from historical purposes, that it might be a good thing to encourage those who believe in God to keep doing so, because when a nation's leaders honor that God, that nation is protected. It's only when it turns away that it falls.
Atheists are great people. Great people. It's God's country. Get those signs down. Get them down. Evil will happen in Corpus Christi. Get them down.
I never get tired of that. Welcome to Atheist Airwaves on Corpus Christi Community Radio. cccomradio.com is where you can find us. I'm Jay Guerrero.
I'm Leslie.
I'm Sara Keefer.
I'm Christian Ferris.
We are Atheist Airwaves. We are Corpus Christi's only radio show for the atheist and secular-minded. We are sponsored by Corpus Christi Atheists and the South Texas Coalition of Reason. Today we're going to be discussing some Satanists in Oklahoma, because those are always fun.
Woohoo.
Bullied student, he won his little thing in Texas, and you can't miss what one of us is calling the Great GMO Cage Match.
Bam.
But
I
first...
hope we all remain friends after that.
I don't know, we'll see.
I didn't like how much anyway.
But first, I thought I'd do a little follow-up from our show last week. We talked someone brought up the fact that Metallica was going to do a show down in Antarctica.
That definitely wasn't me.
Okay, well, someone said, I forget who.
I think Justin.
Justin,
I think it was
probably,
me.
by the way.
Was it you?
Yeah.
Oh.
I was skeptical of Jay's claim that Metallica was going to actually be playing in Antarctica, but as it turns out, they actually are. It's crazy. And I was also skeptical that they would have a place for them to do that, but apparently there's a dome that they're going to put them in that's all nice and toasty, I imagine. The weird thing about it, though, is that they're not playing out loud.
What?
So they're going to have their instruments plugged into whatever, and the show is going to be broadcast out wirelessly, and the audience has to have earphones in. Can't imagine what that's for.
Do sound waves freeze? How does that work?
The people that are going to be there at the show?
Right. So the people in the audience will have to wear...
So their ears will be warm. when they listen.
Oh, that's exactly what it's for.
Now, Are these people going to Antarctica for the
'Cause they're-
concert, or they're
Yeah,
just always,
it's-
they're already there?
I think
hanging
it's a
out?
mixture of both. So it's a contest
Yeah.
for Coca-Cola, and they're flying some fans from Latin American countries to go down there and listen to the show. They're going to do like a cruise, and then at the end of the cruise, they're in Antarctica, and voila, there's Metallica to melt everything.
They're a little crazy, but
So anyway, I got that wrong. You were right, Jay. I was wrong.
it's on record. It is
Whoa.
now on record.
Well, we'll say that now because we're going to get to the GMO stuff later.
Well, sometimes I am crazy, but not nearly as crazy as these other people.
Whew.
Was this Louie Gohmert? What was that, Leslie? How did you say his name?
Louie Terror Babies Gohmert.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm just going to call him Gomer. He's that stupid.
Yeah.
So that was the intro music.
Yeah, that was our lead.
Texas Congressman Louie Terror Babies Gohmert, who said two interesting things in Congress this week. He said first that Christians are the most persecuted religious people on the planet, which actually, depending on, I've seen a study that shows that that's true globally, but the study in question, if
There's more of them to persecute.
well, that too. So there's more of them, but also the persecution they were looking at, if someone burned down your house or killed your kids, that counted equally as if someone hurt your feelings. So,
Okay,
It wasn't weighted.
Sounds about accurate.
right. So, it depends. I wouldn't call that persecution if someone hurts your feelings, but anyway.
Of course you wouldn't. You have none.
Right, that's true. I am the sociopath of the show.
You might have to fight me for that.
No one should be persecuted for their religious beliefs. I think we can all agree on that. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. We can belittle them, but don't persecute them.
But, right. So I'm going to hurt their feelings, but that's not persecution. That's what I'm here to tell everybody today. That I am taking out hurting Christians' feelings and that out of the persecution column. But
That wasn't the part of the whole...
That wasn't part of what we played. But, he's calling for special rights because he feels that he's being persecuted as a Christian, or that his fellow Christians are being persecuted. Persecution, while everyone should oppose that, does not give you special rights. You should not be able to assume special rights for that, in my view. What he was saying in the quote, though, was that being a Christian actually keeps you safe. So as long as you're...
That's the part. Yeah.
Right.
That,
That's what he was saying is, atheists, let us set up our theocracy because that'll make sure that none of you get killed by invading countries or whatever.
yeah, we had a story a couple of weeks ago, something similar, where it was another religious nut. It was on some other radio talk show. They discussed how God had formed this bubble of protection over the United States, but
because of abortion?
abortion, we had burst his bubble or something.
Right. And then before that, it was the gays.
Like
that-
literally burst the bubble, like it was causing global warming.
Right.
Yeah.
And he said something else too, didn't he?
Well, that was what I wanted to talk about. Was he was talking about historically the only time that Christian nations fall, or I guess he was also talking about Jewish or Muslim nations. The only time they fall, and I guess he didn't count the First Crusade, is when they turn away from God. But then I did a little bit of research just today.
Of course you did.
That's what I do. Armenia, which many consider the absolute first Christian nation, has been conquered, reconquered, genocided, and generally passed around, and they are about nearly 100% Christian. And then I was thinking, I wonder how many of the countries that Hitler plowed through in World War II, how many were Christian? And these are just the ones that I got through before I got bored of doing it.
Well, Hitler also considered himself to be Christian.
Yes,
And
he did.
he
Catholic.
fell.
Right. Yes, he was a Catholic. Belgium, Christian country, founded by Hitler. Austria, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Romania, Denmark. And like I said, those are just the ones that I looked up before I got bored of doing it. It's a dumb claim. And it's offensive, really.
I think it's like he just kind of made it up.
Oh, sure.
Doesn't really sound like he
Well, of course.
looked into it at all.
No.
Why would you do a thing like research?
At all.
Who was that guy? David Barton? He's probably the guy who did the history research for this guy.
That name's familiar.
That's the guy we talked about a few weeks ago who had the least credible history book.
Oh yeah, that schmuck. Okay.
Gohmert was also the guy that wanted to put up a plaque at the Capitol recognizing the church services that went on there from, I don't know what it say, 1800 to 1868.
What?
Yeah, it was during the sequester, and part of what he said was any amounts obligated or expended by the architect of the Capitol to carry out this act shall be derived from funds available to the architect as of the date of the enactment of this act. It was during the sequester that he supported.
Nice.
But it's all right to throw money at a plaque.
Right.
These people drive me nuts. So, go ahead.
I was just going to say, they are eating their own now, though. So I mean,
They are. Exactly, yeah. Thankfully, we do see some cannibalism going on within the Christian.
Join us.
One of us. One of us.
So, the Catholic group, I don't know if it's a specific group or not, but they've denounced Limbaugh's comments. Imagine that.
Nice.
About the Pope.
It was Catholics in Alliance for the Common Good.
Okay, so it was a specific group. Good. They've come out and said that Limbaugh is crazy.
Catholics for the
I finally got that. Obviously, they don't announce themselves very well. But Limbaugh came out and said that the Pope is a Marxist.
Straight up Marxist. That's great.
He didn't try to veil it. No candy coating.
Because we talked about Sarah Palin last week, who said he's sounding kind of like a liberal, and Limbaugh's like, no, forget that. This guy's a Marxist. Boom.
I mean, I think we can count on Limbaugh to just put it out there, whatever he's feeling.
Put something out there.
I'm not sure it's going to be right or logical by any means, but.
Right. We've talked we've talked about, and I say this every time now, we talk a lot about this Pope.
We really do.
And, so we've talked in the past about the Francis effect and whether, him being this kind of PR machine is good for Catholic Church, and if it's putting butts in the pews, it's not. But now this guy gets to experience the Obama effect. The right is just going to oppose everything he says, regardless of what it is. Doesn't matter if it's good, bad, whatever he says, they're all going to go after him. So I'm calling it now. By the end of Christmas, the right wing is going to be for distributing contraception simply because the Catholic Church is against it. So
They're going to be so confused. Like, they're not going to know what they want to support.
Right.
It's like, on the one hand, we hate the Pope now, but on the other hand...
It's exactly what's going on with Obama. It's like, like with Syria, I made that same comment that it's like, we really like dropping bombs on brown people, but we really hate the president. What do I do? And apparently they hate the president more than they like bombing brown people. So
there's
That's
enough.
good, I think.
No,
I hate one person instead of a whole bunch. Yeah,
I mean,
At least
if you hate
they're not-
Obama, but instead of killing people, that's good.
they haven't dropped a bomb
He's a
on
positive
him. So,
influence.
Yeah.
No, I haven't looked at it that way. It's a win.
It's an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
But at least they're not tricking folks into doing really stupid stuff, like praying your HIV away.
Oh, this one makes me really upset.
Yeah, it's not cool at all. This is, where was it? It's in Africa, but was
Nairobi, Kenya.
Nairobi, Kenya, and
there's other places too, but that's what this one came
well, this one is about the Pentecostals. The pastors.
And they are, can I just say, the Pentecostals, they are crazy wing. They are crazy town Christianity.
Yes.
They are.
They are the speaking in tongues.
Yeah.
But they're the reason I didn't die from cancer, so because they prayed for me.
Oh,
Oh,
really?
good.
Well, maybe we should have a moment for them.
So
No.
it
Because
works.
there was a circle.
So
prayer for
so
me.
praying away the cancer works, but not the HIV.
Yeah.
Right.
Apparently, you don't see many of these people, but you're right. They are crazy. At least not here. And where I used to
We
live,
have members who are ex-Pentecostals.
Do we? I
In
didn't know
CCA,
that.
yeah.
Females, because do they still have long hair?
No.
Okay.
No,
The long hair and skirts
men
has
that
always
I'm aware
freaked me out.
I didn't know they
that's
did that.
I have people.
Yeah, the Pentecostals are the ones who don't. The females don't cut their hair and they wear nothing but skirts.
Those long
Okay,
ones,
I didn't
or
know that.
Yeah,
Sort of
they're
like
the super.
Seventh
No,
Day
they don't.
Adventist.
They
Usually
don't wear
long,
mini-
ugly jean ones. So it's
See, now, that's like kind of like the Mennonites.
Similar, kind of,
Like
yeah.
in Pennsylvania, there's a lot of Mennonites, and they all wear like those ugly jean skirts.
Yeah.
And their funny hats.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like those
Familiar
little
with
like
those.
white net things. In the
They're like a
back of their
bonnet,
head.
but not quite.
Yeah.
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 They're weird people. They're all weird. But at least the Mennonites aren't doing this. These
Yet.
folks have these folks have tricked several HIV patients into stopping their medication and praying away the HIV.
They actually have them burn their medication as part of the ceremony, the healing ceremony. Because Pentecostals are also very big into the faith healing thing, which is, this is that on steroids. So they would burn their medicine
And pay to do it.
and pay to do it.
And pay to do it.
Sometimes a lot of their entire life savings, which their life is much shortened by this.
Right.
So I mean, they don't feel that pain for very long because very quickly they get sick and they die.
That's true, and they're praying, and not P-R-A-Y, but P-R-E-Y, praying on the stigma that comes along with having AIDS or HIV, because these people want it gone so bad, they're willing to believe anything.
Well, also, I would venture to guess, like, in Africa, a lot of people are really not very well educated about HIV and AIDS. Even when they have it, they just really don't know that much about it and how to prevent it and how to treat it and stuff like that. And so, I had a
They say
roommate.
that's like pregnancy here. That's
Yeah.
what I was reading one of these sentences. I was like, wait, that's here.
I was wondering what you were giggling
No, it
about.
says, then there was high-risk behavior, lack of proper education, denialism and misinformation by officials, and suspicion of medical professionals. I was going to say, that's
Yeah,
Texas.
There you go.
Wow.
Yeah, because I had a college roommate who was from Equatorial Guinea, and she would tell me people would come to their school and talk to them about HIV and AIDS and prevention and stuff like that, and then they would go home and their parents would be like, "That's not true. That's all lies." So, these people just really don't know that much about it, and
Can we all just agree that we should just try and get along with these people and respect their beliefs that they can pray HIV away
Oh.
for
No.
a fee?
No, we
No.
can't. I thought you were going to say we should all get along with people with HIV, and I'm like, Christian, wait.
I can get along with that, but
No, the answer's no.
right. Well,
I'm not going to agree with you on that.
Well, thank you, because I don't agree with me on that. But I'm tired of people telling me that
That'd have
just
to be bleeped out.
it's not even just sad for the people that have the HIV, but also if you're not taking your antiviral medications, it makes it much more likely that you're going to pass it on to others.
Really? I didn't know that.
Well, and that's the other thing that I was thinking about while I was reading this story was how many of these people believe they are cured, and then they go out and they engage in risky behavior with other people and probably don't tell them, hey, no, it's okay. I just came back from the prayer meeting and I'm totally cured.
That's a good point.
So how many other people are suffering because of this? And it's the same thing that the Catholic Church has done to and continues to do to Africa, which is preaching against condom use. Meanwhile, there's a rampant HIV epidemic in the country, and they
So are you
believe it.
saying that we need to bomb the brown people?
The Vatican?
No, the brown people. Weren't we just talking about bombing brown people?
Yeah, but I was more talking, maybe Vatican.
Maybe like condom bombs. Dropping
Condom
like
bombs.
condom
Drop
bombs.
condoms,
Yes,
not bombs.
that we do need to do.
We can get the little balloons, the GPS tracked
Right.
balloons, and send those over there.
Right.
Drop condoms by GPS balloon. Oh, why don't we just hand them to them?
Because then you have to get close to them. So
Now, what about the Pentecostal people that were doing these ceremonies? I wasn't sure. Were these African people, or were they like missionaries,
Yeah, I think they're local.
fellow African?
They're local Pentecostals. Yeah. So.
what was the name of their group again?
No.
That just sounds bad.
No,
Kristen.
that's the other story.
Okay. I thought this was a different group. Okay. So, yeah, these people are not okay. And I think you're right, Christian. You should just hand them out.
Yes, please. It doesn't
not
need to be
wasting money.
it doesn't need to be complicated.
I was
Just-
trying to make fun of the guy who... Didn't he send it into North Korea? Bibles into
Oh
North
yeah,
Korea?
yeah. No, I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
I was
Just to
I was like,
clarify.
we don't need to get all complicated with the GPS and the balloons and the dropping of the Bibles. We can just buy a box of condoms and say, here.
Not only do people in North Korea not need Bibles, but like they would get in trouble if they got caught with a Bible.
Right.
So like
They were being executed.
yeah.
The missionaries were
That's-
dropping bombs. Pretty much.
Bible bombs, they were.
Might as well have been dropping Bibles to them, and then they were getting completely executed. Completely executed, just not halfway executed. 100%. Oh, I got halfway executed today. It was awful. The other thing that was going on in Kenya that I read today, Christians are actually burning suspected witches alive. And I saw a video of it today. I had to fast forward through most of it because I just couldn't take it. But these groups of Christians grabbed 3 or 4 women, put them in a trench, beat them with sticks until they were all, and then started just putting tree branches on top of them and set them on fire. And as the people were trying to get out of the trench, they would hit them with sticks and throw them back in till they were totally engulfed.
That's really not okay.
You should respect their beliefs,
But
Jay.
do you know what sect they were part of?
It didn't say. They
It
just said
didn't
they were
say, just
they were
Christians.
Christians of some.
And what
some
was it
stripe.
about the women that they were choosing?
They were
those women?
witches.
But I mean, was it?
I don't know.
Like with the Salem witch trials, like, oh, she made my child come out deformed or
You
whatever.
know, I'm
She
sure.
turned him into a newt.
I'm sure it was something silly like vindictive or a power grab, because I know a lot of these organizations in Africa, they at random will pick people to say that this person's a witch or this person's possessed, because it's just a way for them to demonstrate their power. And it's, I'm going to burn these people, and then people are going to listen to me when I speak because I'm going to set you on fire. Yeah.
Yeah, is right. So you're listening to you're listening to Atheist Airwaves on Corpus Christi Community Radio. We meet every Sunday at 5:30. This is not a surf. This is a B&J's weekend, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, I have it down here as a surf club, but it's a B&J's weekend. That's the one on SPID. Please visit ccatheist.com for a complete listing of our events, and you can also visit southtexascor.com to connect with our sister organizations. That's from Corpus to Brownsville. And you can tune into the other local radio publications here on cccomradio.com. Now, so let's talk about some local news.
Like a hero of some kind.
Oh, you didn't pull that out already. No, we're gonna talk about the.
You wrote it. I'm just.
I'm already regretting it. So,
As you should.
I believe a guy named Michael Klein is all mad about the Humanists, the American Humanist Association, saying that they're on the rampage again, attacking Christian values in schools. And I am not going to go into this. I'm not going to read this guy's whole thing because I don't want to give him any more credit than he's. Well,
He
not
does.
credit.
He did call them despicable, though. I mean, he was not just saying these are wrong people. He flat out called the American Humanist Association despicable.
For starting a lawsuit that is upholding constitutional.
Several lawsuits.
Yeah. Okay.
And in his letter, Michael Klein mentions a couple of them. One, he says, they're suing because this group wants to give out Christmas presents, and Christmas is bad. What he fails to mention is that what was actually going on is that a group was putting together care packages, much like the Bible bombing guy,
Right.
putting in toys or whatever, but then also including messages urging these people in other countries to convert to Christianity and proselytizing and using public school time and children to promote their proselytizing efforts. He also talked about a recent lawsuit that they filed in Missouri, I believe, where a teacher was leading school prayers
In the class.
in the classroom. I mean, it was before class started, but in a classroom during school hours, the teacher was leading it, which clearly, as an agent of the state, you cannot do.
Was she leading
Is it
it,
this
or was
one?
she just?
Is this
Yes,
one?
it's
Oh,
that
well,
one.
she wasn't leading it.
Yes, she was.
It's not in the lawsuit.
Yes.
It says she just says amen at the
No,
end.
because she called them to.
Well, she
She was the
initiated
sponsor.
it, but
Right.
she's not the one that actually said the prayer. She
There was-
she put her
there-
head down and said amen.
No. What happened was she would tell them, "This is what we're going to pray for. We're going to pray for this young man who is
Well, yeah, she did do
ill."
that.
And then there was no actual out loud prayer. What she would do is everyone would bow their heads.
She
They would-
directed the praying.
She directed the
Yeah.
praying,
She
and
was
then
she was listed as a sponsor, but she was pretty much the orchestrator.
right, and she was using school school resources to print out flyers. It was the only school organization that gave them that used the color printer for their flyers.
And announced events.
Oh, right. And they were announced via the PA system. But not only is this against the Constitution for a school official to be leading school students in prayer, it violates the school district's own policy. Their own policy said that any student-initiated prayer,
Right.
student-initiated prayer, as long as it's not in a public event, is totally fine. But if a teacher is there, that teacher cannot participate because that teacher is a representative of the government.
That's what the lawsuit is about. The humanists are bringing that up, and that's I think it's justified, and I think just about everyone who can read this with some clarity and perspective will agree that it's logical and it's the right thing to do. The lawsuit has solid ground.
I think people, like this gentleman who wrote the letter, he takes parts of the story and just simplifies it, and he can't see past those parts of the story, because the parts that he's focusing on, I would agree that those things are bad, but that's not the whole story.
Man, that sounds really similar to what they do with the Bible.
It does, doesn't it? That's where he learned it.
Right.
2012, 2013, the principal actually announced the prayers over the...
Really?
Yeah.
Over the system.
It's not going to work. They're going to lose.
Yeah, they're going to lose.
It's an interesting... You should read the whole lawsuit.
I did. It really is. And
no thanks.
To be honest with you,
I'm taking notes.
Seriously, if you look at what the American Humanist Association wrote and how they've related it back to existing case law, it's really fascinating. I mean, there are so many more court cases out there that I've never heard of that are related in that lawsuit. The other thing is that this teacher had, Christian stuff on her desk that was facing the...
It was the entrance of the school, wasn't it?
No. It was on her desk in the classroom. So her desk is at the beginning of the classroom, and she had, all this Christian stuff facing
God's game plan.
Right, the book God's Game Plan on there, facing the children.
This is just like the other one that they're bringing
junk.
up.
Yeah, that's not appropriate.
What's that?
FCA stuff.
What is FCA?
What is FCA? Future Christians of America? I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Something Christian.
Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Okay. I'm familiar with them.
Long story short, they're going to lose. This
them.
sounds just like the last one we talked about, where the Humanist Association is taking up the lawsuit, where they've got religion in the classroom, the teachers promoting it in some way or another, and it's blatantly against not just the Constitution but the school's policies too.
Right.
So there was this local schmuck who happens to be an atheist who decided to write an article.
I thought he was dreamy.
Oh, did you? You must love
I
yourself.
thought you thought he was a hero.
Yeah, you did write that.
There's no proof of that.
I saw the notes.
There's no proof of that.
Screenshot.
Our listeners have zero proof of that.
So yeah, I wrote a very, very nice letter.
I couldn't read it because you had to
You have to pay.
subscribe. Yeah.
Well,
Tell me about it.
It was very, very even-toned and nice. Many people were surprised that I can be even-toned and nice.
I was actually very surprised, to be perfectly honest. I didn't know how...
Well, I'm not. I'm kind of a bomb thrower, but anytime you put Corpus Christi atheists on there, I feel like I have to moderate my tone because I'm representing more than just the bomb throwers, and I know we have members who are not bomb throwers.
That's very noble of you, sir.
Well, also you don't want
Dear
to
leader.
make people think badly about our group.
Well, and then also, also it was kind of passive aggressive because
Slightly.
this guy was such a jerk in his letter. I mean, he was name calling and everything
He
else. So I
was.
thought, the best thing to do is just to be the nicest guy on the planet and make him look even dumber than he already does. So it worked out for me. But then the president of the local humanist society wrote a letter a couple of days later, and his got published as well. And his was far more strident, so I was a little jealous that he he got to get all ornery about it, and I didn't. But those were the most commented on items.
Yeah, they made it to the front page of the website. We've got a couple of local atheists who
We have spies.
yeah, we have insiders, and they were able to point us to the fact that the web page, the Corpus Christi Caller-Times web page, those had made it to the front because they were so, I guess, a hot topic.
They like ratings.
Yeah.
They
We
really
give them
like
ratings. They should give us a column.
They should.
Yeah.
And that's true of every time we're on television or the newspaper. I
Yeah.
mean, the KRIS thread was 1,000 comments long when our billboards went up. I mean, it was out of control.
We're advertising gold.
Right, exactly.
Somebody should pay us.
Eyeballs. Tons of eyeballs when
Just
the atheists show up.
babies. Oh.
What?
You said pay us. I was like, and babies.
Oh,
Give us your children.
as long as they're tenderized
The
before.
chubby ones.
The chubby ones.
The ones that have been in the crib and not let out, so they're nice and soft.
marbleized.
Like veal.
We're horrible.
Sorry, I said anything.
So some Christians are even turning to the American Humanist Association at least in this instance, and also cherry picking their own Bibles in this instance by ripping pages out. This was in the Austinist.
This was in Texas, in Birdville High School in North Richland Hills, Texas.
Yeah, there was a gay black student. He's also Christian, and he was suspended for ripping pages out of his Bible.
His Bible.
Yeah, his own Bible in school, which he brought as, I guess, some sort of defense against the bullies that
Right.
were on his case.
The Christians in the school were telling him, you're going to hell every day, and abusing this poor kid. And so he decided to make a statement by tearing out pages from Leviticus, which, I mean, let's be honest, that is the anal gland of the Bible.
I think I'm going to use that phrase from now on.
I don't know. Isn't the anal gland useful? Can we call it something
Well.
else? What?
No, that's
I
what we
was
have to
gonna
call
say,
it.
I was thinking more like it's the
Gallbladder?
backbone of the Christians' right argument against homosexuality.
That's true.
Okay.
That
You can
sounds
be all
way more
diplomatic
logical.
and stuff. That's
Well,
fine.
there's things in Romans, and Paul said stuff about...
But they usually look at Leviticus. If you ask most
Well, that's
Christians, that's what they're going to point
And
to.
it's so weird that they're more familiar with the Old Testament than the New Testament because they run away so often when they'll talk about Leviticus when they want to hate on gay people, but then they run for the hills once you start telling them, well, then you can't go to Red Lobster
Right.
because
Or
they're-
get tattoos.
or get tattoos because Leviticus forbids it. It's abomination. Just like getting a tattoo is just as bad as having sex with another dude.
Yeah.
It is, and just
well,
as
well, no, it's not.
we got what you meant. As an aside.
Neither is is bad, but in the Bible it is.
And I just want to point out that not all Christians are really like that. Thankfully, there are a lot of logical ones, and someone I know is actually in my family. Yeah, I know. I saw that look. But someone who's in my family, he's actually a minister or youth minister. He, if I'm not mistaken, he either did or is going to get that the one you're referencing about tattoos being mark on your skin. He got that tattooed on himself.
Oh no, are you serious?
Yeah.
It was ironic, I hope.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
he
meant to do that.
Yeah, he did it intentionally, and he did it because
And it was all spelled right?
Yes, it was. For those of you not sure what she's talking about, so there was a recent tattoo witnessing. How was it misspelled? I forget what
Strengthen? Was it
Without
minus
a
the
G.
G.
There was no
Yeah.
G in something with Jesus who strengthens me, but
Yeah.
Strengthen.
strengthens.
Yeah, it was very.
Yeah, I think Laura. Did
Laura
Laura see that?
Laura, yeah.
Laura saw
It was
that
a
in the
local
wild.
idiot sighting.
Right.
Somewhere here.
in the body of Christ,
There's
Corpus Christi.
photographic evidence.
There is photographic
Yeah.
evidence.
But here's the other thing, because then they weren't just this school was not just content to punish this student for ripping pages out of his own Bible, but then they also punished him because he was then carrying his Bible around with the ripped pages hanging off of it. So they punished him twice. How about we start by punishing the people who are bullying other students in school? How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is wrong with these people?
Well, I don't know.
A
I mean, they
lot.
wouldn't do it with another fictional book, so why does it matter? It's the Bible.
What if we ripped pages out of like a Quran? I bet
Oh,
they
I'm
wouldn't
sure that'd
care.
be
I'm sure,
fine.
yeah, I'm sure they
You
wouldn't
become
care about
class
that.
president.
Right. You get extra credit.
Of course, especially in wherever this was, small town North Texas,
Birdville.
wherever it is.
No, it was
Birdville?
Richland,
North
North
Richland
Richland
Hills.
Hills. Birdville
Well, at
High
Birdville
School.
High School.
That sounds very, very white. I don't know, elite class.
I believe the boy was African
He
American.
was African American.
Yeah, he was.
Um,
he was gay African American Christian who was being bullied, and he brought his Bible to say, "Hey, that's not cool. I'm going to teach you about Leviticus."
Leave me alone.
He's gonna win.
He already did.
Oh, he
Because-
won.
No, the school district buckled under. So, Mr. Klein, take note. The Despicable American Humanist Association got the school
Oh.
district to buckle. They removed all disciplinary actions from the student's record.
You know
Oh,
the thing
okay.
that Mr. Klein said. Where did it go?
Please tell us, what did Mr. Klein
He
say?
said, "I do not think it is likely that this could happen in the coastal bend, but be aware that the AHA is on a nationwide rampage. I think it could happen here.
Oh, I do too.
We will
Really?
see over the next couple of weeks."
Tis the
Rampage.
season.
Tis the season.
I'm, the other thing that I was trying to do is I was trying to imagine what atheist bullies would be like in school. I mean, would they walk around going, "Ha ha, you're not going to heaven"? I mean,
I love that. I'm going to start doing it. Can I go to high school and point at people and say
let's
that?
go to Flower Bluff High School and just wander the halls until they kick us out.
I don't think that would take long. I don't look like the most friendly person on the planet.
You would be
most days.
shot at the front door.
You're-
Texas, man.
Hey, the Indians used to live here too.
Used to.
Hey,
Manifesto.
so
Glad you made it back.
speaking of militantness, you have a bone to pick.
Well,
or-
I just wanted to explore this topic. We talked a little bit last week about the different kinds of atheists, and I self-identified myself as a militant atheist, for whatever that means. There were a couple of things that have come up over the course of the last week, and that have just bothered me for a long time. The first thing I wanted to do was talk about just the term militant atheist, because the term militant gets applied to a lot of different groups. And if you look at what a militant atheist does compared to a militant Christian, a militant Muslim, a militant Hindu, these terms do not belong together. So a militant atheist is someone like me who yells at somebody. And I might be rude and I might hurt your feelings. Oh dear.
and he throws bombs.
Right. Well,
F-bombs.
F-bombs, yes.
The verbal variety
Right.
of bombs, not condom bombs either.
But then you have, the militant Christians who are shooting abortion doctors and fire.
Talking about abducting women, going to
Oh,
get
yes.
abortions.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
like, that's really happening.
That's
so-
really happening.
That
They're
was
taking.
super awful.
Yeah.
Does someone want to just briefly explain what that was?
There was a church, I believe it was a church, and they were
church affiliated group or something.
they were encouraging people to. There's a volunteer group where you can volunteer to drive women to abortion clinics, so that way they don't have to walk in through protesters by themselves, and also maybe they don't have the money to get there or something like that. So, this Christian group was encouraging people to volunteer for this organization, go pick the women up on the guise that they were going to take them to the abortion clinic, and then instead of taking them to the abortion clinic, they would drive them to a church and start trying to
Convince them not to have
have
the
an
abortion. Yeah.
and which I believe is kidnapping.
No, it is kidnapping
I mean-
and false imprisonment.
How horrifying! You already are probably stressed out that you're having to get an abortion, and now you're being kidnapped at the same time.
Yeah, no good.
What? Okay.
Yeah,
So, you've got militant Christians who kill abortion doctors, set abortion clinics on fire, kidnap women. You've got...
really horrible things.
Right. You've got militant Muslims who blow up buildings and people and behead soldiers in the streets of London.
And stone some of their
And
own people.
stone women for learning things. Shoot young girls in the head for going to school. You've got militant Hindus who set people on fire, who beat people with clubs for saying things that they don't approve of. Meanwhile, you've got militant atheists, and I'm unaware of an atheist killing anyone over atheism. I think
I'm sure it's happened, but I don't know of any off the top of my
I
head. And
can't imagine it has, because if that happened, it would be on Fox News 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the rest of eternity. every time Dave Silverman showed up on
got a
Dave
good
Silverman,
point.
president of.
I suppose I could see them getting to like a heated argument and sort of some sort of scuffle or fight happening secondary to that, and then
Well,
maybe husband or something.
I don't know.
But
I think the only really truly heated atheist argument I've seen ended in a kiss.
So anyway, at the same time, while I'll call myself a militant atheist because whatever, it really isn't a term that applies because I've not blown anyone up, I've not killed anyone, I've not torched any buildings. I am not militant in the way that religious people are militant, and so I a little bit resent the false equivocation.
by militant, do we mean violent?
Violent, that's
You're sort of categorizing it as being violent.
That's
Well-
exactly what I was going to say, yeah.
Well, I just think the most strident atheist is not nearly at the level that the most strident theist.
So we should use strident.
Well, I'm just
Well, strident.
just to clarify what we mean by militant.
Right.
You're
Well,
meaning
I
when you
mean,
say that, it sort of does
I
incite violence when you say that, but
But I mean, other people call me that. They call me a militant atheist.
They
And
call you other things, too.
yeah, I know, and they're not doing it behind my back. I assure you.
I call you a hero. I mean, come on.
And then you deny it in front of people.
I have to
Especially
preserve
private.
my image.
So the other thing that I wanted to talk about was, and I've gotten this a lot this week actually, is that why don't you just respect other people's beliefs and just shut up and let them believe what they want to, and you can believe whatever you want to, and whatever. At the same time, this sounds to me like just sit down and shut up. And they have no problem with Christians going out and posting things they believe. Like I have to look at, share this if you love Jesus or ignore it and go to hell on my Facebook feed every week. I don't say anything. I kind of giggle at it and move on. But heaven forbid I should say something about my atheism on my Facebook page, and then I get assaulted. Now, I mean, it's a little different because Christians have their belief systems that have nothing to do with me. My belief system is completely because of what I'm surrounded by. If Christians did not exist, I wouldn't be an atheist. I
That's
mean,
a fair point. That's a fair point to make, yeah.
no, you would still be an atheist.
well, I just wouldn't call myself an atheist. You're right. I just wouldn't be calling myself an atheist because there would be no reason to. My belief is a reaction to their claims, and my position
There you go.
is a reaction to their silly claims. And so our positions are intertwined in a way that they cannot be extricated in any sense. So literally telling me to respect religion is to tell me to not ever discuss what my personal belief system is.
That really does make sense it's a good clarification for what you said, which is it's a lot of sit down and shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is. So that's a good point. I'm glad you made that.
I like that that cartoon. I'm going to bring the radio show to a grinding halt by describing cartoon. But on the one, this is the worst radio ever, guys. On the left-hand side, it says old atheism, and it has a religious person saying shut up, and the atheist is just sitting there. And on the other side, it says new atheism, and it's a religious person saying shut up, and the atheist says no. And that's where I am.
Yeah.
No, I'm
Yeah.
going
And
to.
then you're persecuting me.
Yeah, right.
Right, yeah, the next phrase. So before we get to our history lesson this week, we want to remind you that you are listening to Atheist Airwaves on cccomradio.com. CCA ascribes to the principles of Atheism Plus, which is a term used to designate groups dedicated to promoting social justice, countering misogyny, racism, ableism,
Be nice to your hobos, people, when you're out there on the train
Stop
tracks.
homophobia.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah.
Well, I mean, that too.
Yeah, I would agree.
I would be
All of those things.
We can add that in there.
I would be against that.
So that's what we're about.
No, you didn't finish.
Anyway,
Oh,
let's move on to our history lesson.
Broken show. All right, so this week on
Excuse me.
This week in Religious and science history. We'll start with the religious stuff. It's more Pope stuff. Nothing awful, just weird and informative this week. On this day, December 10th, in the year 741, Pope Zacharias became Pope. By all accounts, this guy was a good guy. He was smart. He was a diplomat. He didn't do anything at all crazy in his 11 years as Pope. He died on March 22nd, 752, and his successor was Pope Stephen II, who holds the record for the shortest time as Pope. Jay, make your guess as to how long Pope Stephen II was Pope.
Can I change my guess? I guess
No, you cannot.
Yeah,
Did
6.5
you
days.
look
Okay,
at it?
6.5 days.
6.5 days. What-
2.
2 days.
1 day.
Oh, Sarah wins by not going over.
Oh, you watch The Price is Right, don't you?
Pope
That's what I was trying to do, trying to lowball you guys.
$1. Pope Stephen II was Pope for 0 months, 0 days, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds.
He was not a pope?
Wait, what?
He died. He was nominated as Pope and died 3 days later before he was actually consecrated and put in office.
Wow.
That's a trick question.
That is
Yeah.
a trick
Crap,
question.
don't do that.
Bam, Sarah won.
I don't know. I
Ooh.
still
Now
didn't
what?
win. I said 1 day, and you said that it was 0
It was
days.
the closest.
But I
You win
did
by
go
default.
over, though.
Well,
Yeah, but you
This isn't The Price is Right, okay?
you do watch The Price is Right, clearly, because you know the rules, and I don't.
So speaking of short-lived popes, and also this week in religious history, Pope Celestine V was Pope for just over 5 months when he resigned this week, about almost 1,000 years ago, December 13th, 1294. He did a lot of stuff during those 5 months, and not nearly everything, every single thing he did was reversed by his successor, except for one. Celestine was the Pope who made the rule that the Pope could actually resign his post right before he then resigned his post.
And they kept that one?
They kept that one because obviously the new Pope didn't want him not to be able to be resigned because then...
Yeah, then he would oust himself.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
Pope Celestine V is the guy that Pope Benedict, our last Pope, Pope Benedict the 16th, has that guy to thank for being able to resign himself, because that's the guy who made the rule that he was able to walk away from his papacy.
Before that, did they just have to kill themselves?
Or someone would have to do it for them,
Yeah.
I think
So no one.
I was going to say that, but that might be
I
considered
think it
a
was
threat.
very like Game of Thrones back then.
I was.
All right.
Never mind. I'm not going to go
Okay.
there.
Well, we're gonna keep Jay from being arrested by moving on to This Week in Science History. On December 10th, 1896, Alfred Nobel died. He was a chemist and a businessman from Sweden who held 350 patents by the time that he died. So here's the easy question for the crowd: what was Alfred Nobel famous for inventing?
656 inventions.
There's 350, and I just said it. How can you not? Come on, people. Really?
The Peace Prize? The
No,
prize?
he did invent that.
Yeah,
but
I don't know. I'm not following you. I tune you out.
He didn't have a patent for that.
I knew this a couple hours ago, actually.
All right, I'm just going to give it. So, Alfred Nobel was famous for inventing dynamite, which was his successful attempt to make nitroglycerin safe to handle. Apparently, because people tended to blow themselves up with nitro. When he invented dynamite, which was far more stable, he considered for a time he considered naming it Nobel's safety powder. Which
Safety powder.
not quite as catchy as dynamite, so I think he made the right decision. But before his death in 1896, his brother Ludwig died about 11 years before Alfred kicked the bucket, and a French newspaper got it wrong and thought that Alfred had actually died, and so they printed an obituary that was very much in the tradition of Atheist Airwaves obituary, in which they were dancing on his grave. So their obituary of Alfred was, quote, "The merchant of death is dead. Dr. Alfred Nobel, who became rich by finding ways to kill more people faster than ever before, died yesterday." So that apparently had a deep effect on Alfred, who became concerned about what people were going to think about him after he died, and thus the idea of the Nobel Prizes was born. So he left the bulk of his sizable estate to found the awards that recognize achievement without regard to nationality in 5 fields. That's physical science, chemistry, medical science or physiology, a prize for literary work in an ideal direction, which was very confusing because no one knew exactly what that meant, And then, of course, the fifth prize given to a person or society that furthers the efforts of international peace, which is the well-known Nobel Peace Prize.
Well, thank you.
So blow people up, but then give people money for opposing that.
It worked.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what everybody knows him for.
that's true.
So.
Well, you guys don't know him for the blowing people up part, so it worked.
Yeah, it did. It worked. We didn't have any idea. We were clueless.
There you go.
Now, not everyone who wins Nobel Peace Prizes is always the most awesome person. The only reason I bring that up is because, and I didn't know this until today, because believe it or not, I did some research, Christian.
What?
Whoa.
What was that like?
Mission accomplished.
It was very boring. The guy who, something Mueller, Patrick Mueller, I think maybe, Paul Mueller, something. Started with a P.
I don't think we did the same research.
Well, anyway, he invented DDT, and he won a Nobel Peace Prize for it.
Did he really?
A Nobel Peace Prize?
Oh, it wasn't a Peace Prize. Excuse me. He won a Nobel Prize in chemistry, I think, or something like that.
Wow, I had no idea.
For inventing DDT. Yeah.
Insane. I did do some research on DDT today, and I had no idea it was around as long as it had been.
Yeah, it's been around for a long time.
1896, if I recall correctly from my research.
Something like that, yeah.
Wasn't used agriculturally until much later, but that's when they first formulated it. But what is that about, Jay? And why are you bringing up DDT?
Well, one of our stories today was about a journal that withdrew an anti-GMO study, and that's where the cage match is going to start. Because
ding, ding,
we're going to have rounds here. So
it's only going to take one.
Oh, really?
Oh.
He's going there. So essentially, a large or a very heavily weighed on study, anti-GMO study.
It was a small study, unfortunately.
Well, okay,
that's the problem with it.
It was a small study, but it's been heavily weighed on from the anti-GMO crowd.
Yeah.
That essentially said that GMOs cause tumors in rats.
And organ failure.
Right. And it's been yanked.
Yes.
And it's been yanked because... Go ahead, Christian. This is.
Okay,
I'm sure you don't want to.
It was
I'll let you have your gold for now.
I'm jumping at the bit. I want to talk about it. So it was published in a peer-reviewed journal, Elsevier's Food and Chemical Toxicology Journal. And it was immediately reacted to by the scientific community with disgust, really. So the journal underwent a year-long review of the methods and the data, and they yanked it because for one reason, they found that his sample size was too small to be statistically significant. So there was no way for him to bring any meaningful results out of the pool of rats that he used.
And to be fair, and to help your point here,
yes, thank you.
The rats that he was used, that particular variety, breed, strain, whatever, were prone to tumors anyway.
Yes. So that was what people were saying beforehand. So was that, these Sprague Dawley rats, they have a lifespan of about 2 years, and they have a tendency after 18 months to grow a lot of cancerous tumors. So one of the things that scientists were saying was, hey, yeah, of course they had tumors. They're the kind of rats that get tumors. Now, other people came to his defense and said, he controlled for that. And he had a control group, and these rats did not have the same amount of tumors and all that. But at the end of the day, his sample size was not large enough to warrant bringing any conclusions out of the data. And this is not the first time that this guy has been criticized for that. Every single paper that he's brought out for the last 10 years has had the same criticism. And so that, to me, is very, 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 very... Because you'd think it would only take once for some people to level that accusation out, and then you fix that, right?
Well, I don't want to even bring this topic up, really, but sounds like the autism and vaccine study.
Mm-hmm. It's exactly the same thing.
Okay.
I guess, can we clarify by GMOs, genetically modified organisms? Can we clarify what we mean by that? And also...
I think we'll probably disagree about what we mean by that, but I mean any organism that has had its evolution changed by humans, whether that's by inserting genes or guiding its, natural selection.
And was he
Artificial
feeding? He was
Well, that's-
feeding the rats genetically modified foods.
Corn.
Okay.
Right. And yes,
Monsanto corn is what he was feeding them.
more or less. And to be clear on that point, yes, you can call lots of things genetically modified.
That's the thing about GMOs, that I feel like it can be such a broad
It is
term that it
broad.
can be applied to a lot of different things.
And humans have been doing it for millennia.
But the method through which they've been doing it does differ greatly, and
Yeah.
absolutely in saying that GMOs have been around for a very, very long time. Breeding lines and doing stuff. But
Artificial
introducing-
selection.
But introducing other species,
Sure, that's different.
that's the GMO that I
That's
tend
transgenesis.
to. Thank you, scientist
that's-
on the field.
Excellent. I've never heard that term before.
Neither have I.
Thank you.
Cisgenesis is if they use the same strain of different strains of like same species.
So, just to get it out of the way, bananas are GMOs. They have been artificially selected for particular genes. Broccoli is a GMO. It does not exist in nature. Neither do bananas. They are completely human-created vegetables and
But
fruits.
so are all almost
all,
everything.
but most.
No, seriously, about everything that you find in the grocery store, you can't find naturally out.
Right.
They have
That's
been
true. That's
artificially
very, very true. I
selected
agree.
and cultivated.
In different methods.
You could call dogs that people have as pets
Yeah.
genetically modified.
Sure,
too.
yeah.
Mhm.
That's not. I don't think that's what the argument anybody's trying to make.
Dogs give you cancer.
If you have one.
Cats do.
Dogs can find cancer.
Oh, and I
They
think
can
it's
sniff
cats.
it out. Anyway,
Anyway.
No, dogs.
so I wrote some stuff down so that I wouldn't stumble over my own words and everything. Although I'll probably do that anyway. But I'm just going to read this little thing I wrote here. Okay.
I'm going to interrupt you.
That's totally fair.
Can I do
Okay.
it too?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so the products that we know as GMOs have not really been unanimously proven to be unhealthy in the human body. There's been no research that says, just in any way, shape, or fashion, with 100% clarity, that that's true. Research claims tend to be tainted, biased, unclear in both directions.
Go ahead. I'll give you one more sentence.
For going the research, simply because it lacks clarity. And it lacks a decisive picture. I personally choose, and this is my personal choice, and I don't trust these things. That's why there's several reasons I don't trust GMOs in the sense that we're talking about here. And go ahead, I can tell you're ready.
I'm sidling up to the microphone here. Every major international science body in the world has reviewed multiple independent studies. Some have reviewed hundreds of independent studies. And have found that GMO crops are safe or safer.
Over
th-
2,000 studies.
Yes, thank you. That is the number. Or safer than conventional or organic foods. A group of Italian researchers recently did
What do you mean by safer?
That was my clarification there too.
less likely to pose environmental or health risks to humans or the environment.
Like any kind of health
Yes.
risk?
Yes, so it's very broad. So we're talking about 2,000 studies, and so they looked at different things. So some of them may have looked at, impact on insects, impact on local fauna, flora,
Okay.
or reactions to humans. So recently, a team of Italian researchers did a comprehensive review of over 1,700 studies of GMO products and their safety and environmental impacts, and they could not find a single credible example demonstrating harm to humans or animals. We've been, like I said before, we've been genetically modifying organisms for millennia, basically since we left the caves and went out. We started.
I'm going to come back to this, where you
Oh,
say
please do.
that there's been no
Okay.
indication of harm to anything because of them.
No credible, because this guy obviously wrote, published a study that said that it will give rats huge tumors,
Okay.
but it's not credible.
Okay.
It's not scientifically not well designed scientific study.
Okay.
So we've been using this particular form of genetic modification for up to 30 years. We've had over 2 billion acres planted, and nothing has surfaced over that time. Heart-eating diet pills took less time to surface real harm and substantial evidence.
Okay, fair enough. So, one of the first reasons that I this is a personal choice. One of those first reasons is the people behind them.
Sure.
When you take companies that, like, you've got DuPont, you've got Monsanto, these are the same people who peddled stuff like DDT, Agent Orange, and that was supposed to be safe, quote unquote. And now we see that's
you get
not.
you get a Nobel Prize for DDT.
Right,
so
right. You also get a whole host of.
I sprinkle DDT on my salads.
I think, and I'd have to find it again, but I think there was actually one ad that this was back in like the 40s or 30s that said DDT is safe enough to eat. And
yes, it is.
we now know differently. Those same companies are the ones that are creating the chemical compounds that fuel the GMOs we talk about today, that I'm talking about, the genetically modified soy and corn and things like that. They're undoubtedly harmful to the environment.
DDT and Agent Orange.
No, I'm talking about things like glyphosate. I mean, and you say that there's no credible things. I mean, and I've got some sources cited here. If you want to go take a look at them. Okay, the larval stage of the monarch butterflies having issues, and
so
endocrine disruption in embryonic death, and
yes.
These things you're saying these studies aren't credible?
No, those are actually very good studies. And if you go to the original study, what you'll find is that they have no concrete evidence that actually happens in nature. That their experiments show that happens in the laboratory, and the result says they need to do more study to find out whether that actually impacts the biosphere.
Okay, so they're saying that it happens in a lab,
right.
But
so if you take a paintbrush and you spread this stuff all over the caterpillars, it breaks that barrier in their guts that keeps
sure.
the
That's what BT is designed to do.
Right.
I think it's a little stepping out there to
BT,
say that. Go ahead.
Do you know what BT comes from?
I don't know.
It's I don't know what
At
the
one point I
caterpillar's
probably
name,
would've
but
known,
it's from the gut of the cow. Well, my thing is, okay, so you were talking about basically, I don't even know how to pronounce that word. What is Roundup's?
Glyphosate.
Whatever. Whatever it is. Do you think that maybe organic farming is better?
Do I think organic farming?
Do you think the pesticides that they use for organic farming is better?
For what?
For keeping pests away.
For keeping pests away?
For doing the job that pesticides are supposed to do.
In some instances, I can't say a blanket statement that it is absolutely, but in many instances, absolutely.
It is based on the same thing.
Yes, but it's synthesized and used in a much, much broader scale. Is it not?
No.
Okay, well, then correct me.
I just did.
So here's what I would say about DDT and Agent Orange. So first of all, Agent Orange was only used for a total of 5 years, and
That's
only
true.
by the American military.
Against foreign enemies,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Vietnamese. I mean, only Vietnamese, really.
Sure.
And at the end of those 5 years, we had enough data to know that it was messing up our people. It was messing up the environment. DDT was used for much longer, but really agriculturally, less than 20 years. So after World War II, they released it to be used in agriculture, and by 1962, we had ample evidence that it was causing severe harm.
Okay.
We don't have that for GMO. And it's been around for 30 years now.
And also, it is the least toxic pesticide that we have
Glyphosate?
out of everything. Yes.
What do you mean toxic?
Least toxic.
How so? I mean,
How so?
Yeah.
What are some of the other ones? Out of everything, if you are going to be covered in it, it's not going to do anything to you.
I don't have facts to back it up, but I disagree.
It has less toxins than a teaspoon of salt.
Okay, I have trouble believing, and I understand what you're saying, that when it comes to the field study and the number of years, but when you have companies that made the same stuff, like Agent Orange and DDT, putting their chemicals on my food, I tend to distrust it. And
I don't blame you. It's like boycotting Walmart, though.
It's like boycotting
Yeah,
Walmart.
you're boycotting based on practices and things that you don't like about the company, not based on whether or not it's actually bad for you.
Right. And I think that can be said for a lot of companies
Sure.
in today's day and age where we are really in a corporatist society. What I would say in response to it, though, is that the principle we tend to live by in these things is called the precautionary principle, which says that, if you know that something is potentially harmful, that you test it before you just start doing it. And we do that. We heavily regulate GMOs.
That's absolutely false.
No, it's absolutely
In
true.
fact, you
No, I
will find many...
It is actually, we only regulate GMOs.
But
Other crops are not.
Who regulates them?
The government.
The government
FDA.
being the FDA,
USDA.
meaning the same people who have folks that used to work for Monsanto in leadership roles.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't.
It's not.
Again, don't
you're
trust
not gonna.
that.
It's not a revolving door. It's not like everyone who leaves Monsanto. It's not like Congress, who everyone who leaves Congress goes to a lobbying firm. Everyone who leaves Monsanto does not go into the government. I mean,
No, I agree with
you've
that.
got one data point. Right?
I can't say that.
Can you tell me one other person besides Michael Taylor who has gone on to be?
I can't and don't have to, because
Well,
one
I mean, yes,
person
you do.
who was,
Because the other thing is, Michael Taylor worked before he worked at Monsanto.
he worked for the USDA.
Right.
Yeah.
He's got chops. That's a reasonable.
Sure.
While I'll agree I'll agree with you on a point. I agree with you that it looks bad. It gives
It
the
does, yeah.
appearance of impropriety, and that's enough to me that I would not have let that go through. That does not mean that there's a problem or that
He's-
GMOs are unsafe.
That's sort of
He's worked for Monsanto in two different time
No,
frames
he was
and
a
two different.
no. They were a client
Sorry,
of his
Sarah.
early on, and then he worked for them later. Sorry,
By
go
the way,
ahead.
that's only one source of GMOs.
That's true. I
I mean,
agree with that.
that's the bad guy, but there's
There's
more.
tons,
yeah,
yeah.
there's tons. So, yeah.
What were you going to say, Sarah? I'm sorry.
It was just sort of the same idea of the Nobel Prize guy, because he had this really negative thing, and so he didn't
Sure.
want everyone to remember the same negative thing, because he was trying to do something good, and sort of like the same thing.
Okay, that's a fair
Because
point.
when people, when they started using DDT, I don't think that they realized how bad it was going to be.
Sure.
They're just like, great, everyone's going to get more food,
Sure.
and
So why do you guys think that GMOs is the way to go? Because from what I'm hearing,
I didn't
that's
say
right.
it was just the way to go.
Oh, okay. Well,
I'm
are
just
you saying that,
it's not
Chris?
the horrible thing for you
Yes.
that most people think that it is. Not most people, but that people think that it is.
We-
And it is very. It's okay. Whenever they test they don't really test by food. They test by genes. Whenever they go through regulations, so it's the genes that they insert into different species that get they test for allergens. They test for antinutrients, and they test for toxins.
Especially the allergens. No other food gets that kind
No
of.
other food. It's only GMOs that actually get tested for it.
Okay, well, and I'll admit to not having done the research on that. But I do know that there are several, at least, I'm pretty sure they've been passed. You know how I stay in the political spectrum.
Right.
But with things like different acts that have been sent through, Congress and made laws, the one that comes to mind is the Monsanto Protection Act, and what was
Which
it?
I think is a good law.
And is the farmer assurance provision, which one of those, and again, forgive my ignorance
the
because
law?
I don't pay
There's-
that much attention
what
to it,
is
but
the
one
law?
of them says that, and essentially, I'm paraphrasing here, so forgive me, Christian.
No. There's a lot of confusion about what it actually says. so-
There really is, but from what I understand, it essentially gives farmers and these biotech companies the ability to continue planting and using these crops before they're fully tested.
No, that's not it.
Okay,
So
well-
what it does is it gives them the ability. So currently they're allowed to plant them. If an environmental group or one of these anti-GMO protest groups comes along and says, "Hey, we think this isn't safe, and we're going to go and ask this judge for an injunction and make them destroy their crops or stop planting it," they cannot do that. They have to first prove in a court of law that there is a harm that is being caused, that there is detrimental effects from this stuff before they can have a judge shut them down. So I think that's a good thing because I think there's a lot of hysteria on the anti-GMO side. And, if I were against something, I would not be above, using a legal maneuver to
Sure.
shut that stuff down.
Sure.
So as long as it's not doing, if it was doing what you said, which was saying no matter what the evidence
Okay,
shows,
right.
you cannot stop planting this stuff and feeding it to kids, I would totally be on board with you. My reading of the bill says that's not exactly what it says.
And I'm going to have to
And there's a lot
to
of
bow out on that one because I haven't read it. I've read portions of it, and I don't know. I'm
And,
paraphrasing.
like I said, there's a lot of confusion about it, so I could be wrong. So we'll give that one up.
Sure. Yeah, we'll both
Yeah.
give that one up. And the point that I tend to come to.
Let me.
go ahead.
Sorry, just let me finish that one off by saying that it was a 1 year. It was law for 1 year, and it's
Was it?
not being renewed.
Okay. Well,
What about what do you guys think about like companies patenting different strains of different
patenting
crops?
life essentially. It
Yeah.
bothers me, but that's a different part of the argument. There's a lot of different
Yeah,
parts of the
I
argument.
read this article about how like with the soy, there's a farmers that are neighboring. Maybe one farmer uses a patented soybean strain, the other farmer doesn't. The wind blows the patented ones into the other farmer's field, and then
Sure,
they
sure.
end up having to pay.
That's
Go for it.
No,
you
you
go.
go
No,
for it.
you go for it.
That's
I'll say it
that's
is.
an urban legend.
It is false to a large degree. I've done a great deal of research on it, and there are patents on those things. They can't reuse seed and things like that. But the cross-contamination of GMO crops is not something that these biotech companies go after.
It does happen.
It does.
It does happen where crops are cross-pollinated. There's never been a lawsuit about it. Where that comes from is there was a Canadian farmer who tried to use that as a defense, and
It didn't fly.
It did not fly
No.
because he was lying about that. So the good news is though that while he lost that lawsuit, it was against Monsanto. They found that he was actively cheating, but they also said that Monsanto didn't lose anything, so he paid them $1, I think.
Yeah, it was something silly. The argument that I tend to come back to that is just a personal argument, and I don't have any citations or anything else. But when I think of food and human beings, we have evolved over a long, long period of time, millions of years, and our food is changing very, very quickly. And I don't believe our bodies have the ability to keep up with some of the changes we're putting out there.
But on what do you base that on?
The
Well,
fact-
yeah, what
the-
do you
the
mean by
fact that
not
we're
keeping up?
Well, the food supply that we have, at least in our country, in my grocery store, has changed drastically in the last 50 years. From food that was planted and grown in your own garden to food that's come in, trucked in from who knows where. And also, a lot of it is genetically modified on the level that we're referring to now, not in the splicing of gene.
Not really.
Not really how? Well, what's not?
There aren't that many crops that are actually. I don't know. I don't have the list of them, but there's not that many that are actually genetically modified.
No, I don't mean to say that there's a great deal of crops. I mean to say a great deal of the food in your supermarket is.
Oh, like
is-
actually, like in the food.
Right.
Oh,
I mean.
Not the.
Right.
I don't know about
So,
that.
but let me just make this point. You have no evidence to base that on. You're just saying you feel that would be true. And
No, I don't have empirical evidence because
Right.
I haven't gone out and studied it, and I haven't gone out and researched
right,
it.
but we should not be making environmental
Well-
or financial decisions based on I don't feel this.
Well,
we need evidence.
When you and I can't completely disagree with you there. However, when the food supply changes to such a great deal, and not in
It's not
an
that-
unnatural fashion, and when I say unnatural, I mean that human intervention on a genetic and molecular level of taking one gene from a species and putting it into a completely different critter,
Right.
for lack of a
That's
better term.
transgenesis.
Okay, what you were saying earlier. Thank you. Transgenesis. I don't think.
Cisgenesis, if it's from the same, like if you had two different strains of corn and you took
Okay.
a gene from one and put it in the other, that'd be cisgenesis.
I don't think that.
Which is really
there's been-
what
I don't
happens.
think that's been happening at long enough.
There's not a whole lot of
But, okay.
transgenesis going on in the food that you are eating.
But
I
let's-
guess I can't think of, I'm trying to think about it like medically, and I can't really think of like medically what problem are you worried about?
I don't know
Right.
specifically.
That's my problem with
and
your
that's
position.
right, and I understand that.
So,
That's,
but
that's,
let me say this. So, one of the old-fashioned GMOs was IR8 rice, which was bred back in 1962. Now, fast forward to 1988, we were at IR36, so it was a jump of almost 30 different. It was a jump of 30 different changes to that biological organism. 10 years later, we were up to 72 IR72. And in the course of this, they increased crop yields by over 10 times. But that's very rapid. It's not the same transgenesis where you're moving genes from one organism to a different one, but it changes very rapidly, and there's been no effect whatsoever on humans. So until there is an effect, and I think DDT and Agent Orange are great examples, because we threw it out there, and within a reasonable amount of time, we were able to see what happened, and we don't see anything with GMOs. We don't see anything.
Also, I think there's so many different ways. There's so many different things that can be a GMO, and so many different ways that they can
That's true.
genetically modify things. I guess I don't know. I'm having trouble. I'm having trouble understanding what you're afraid of. What do you think is going to happen? Are you afraid of cancer? Are you afraid of
Sure, those things,
what?
and again, there's no definitive proof one way or the other.
But cancer is usually from your cells being harmed by something.
Mutated,
so,
right? And who's to say how the human body is going to react to those?
But you're already
changes?
eating those genes, though.
What do you mean?
You're already eating rice.
Mm-hmm.
They're just taking different kinds of rice and mixing them up a little bit.
Well, yeah, the syngenesis, is that what you call it? Cisgenesis? That doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me at all. It's when you take things and change them on. Yes, thank you, Miss.
It's like making the pigs glow in the dark. Did y'all see that?
No, but it's essentially the same thing. I don't know for a fact how it's gonna happen. I don't know what it's going to do, and I don't think, and I could be completely wrong in this. I haven't sat down and done the depth of research that Christian has on this specific instance, that it's been we've been having transgenesis for 30, 40 years. I don't know. But the fact remains that we've changed our food so drastically in the last 50 to 60 years, whereas the evolutionary scale of humans has taken it's taken millennia.
Sure, but there's absolutely no indication that, and there may be at some point, we may find something. We may genetically engineer an organism that is just as bad as whatever those diet pills that put holes in your hearts were.
Sure.
But we'll find evidence of that. Let me give you a bone, or let me not do that.
Yes, Christian.
Let me try to let me try to do a little bit of reconciliation here, because what I will say is that I would not be part of I would not take a new drug unless I had a terminal disease within the first 10 years of it being out. I would not be part of the people who were testing whether that is going to drill a hole in your heart or not. So I can respect in some ways, that you don't want to subject your body to things that are new and untested. I just don't think that GMOs are new or untested.
and I agree with what you're saying. I'm of the variety that I don't take pharmaceuticals in any instance, hardly at all.
And they are tested.
No, right.
Before they're put out. They are.
And that's the precaution.
For a long they are for a long time. For a long time too, 10 to 15 years, like drugs.
So that's the precaution.
The genes.
Did you say that again? Like drugs?
Like drugs. Whenever they put out a new, I don't know.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
They operate under the precautionary principle, which is this is something that we've not done in the history of humankind, and we're ingesting it. So they subject it to a lot of testing because the burden of proof is on the people who are making a corn product with a gene from an insect or something.
Those tests are, from what I understand, there are not enough independent tests for there to be to counteract the amount of money that's being made off of them by a select few. And those select few have a lot of power in directing those studies with money and government and all. I do not trust a few handful of companies who've been making these other products and are making vast amounts of money off of the different products that they're selling.
What if they didn't just label them as GMOs, but they labeled them as where the GMO came from?
One more time?
Because you're
I don't
talking
understand
about
what you mean.
your problem is really with a few select larger companies, but not all of them. They're not all like that. So, what if you knew that the GMO was not from one of those companies?
That I was going to be ingesting?
Yeah.
I still don't think I would trust it. Hadn't
Okay.
thought about that one though.
I guess I can see. I'm trying to think of understand what you're worried about. So I was trying to think. I guess I could see if they took a plant that was harmful to some people. Maybe okay. So let's say you're allergic to peanuts, and they
Okay.
took part of like the peanut gene and tried to put it in rice or wheat
Sure.
or something like that.
Sure.
And then you ended up having like an allergic reaction to it, and that wasn't expected.
I get what you're going for.
I guess
there.
I'm trying to Yeah, well, that's what I know, but I'm just trying to like logic it out in my head.
No, and I get what you're saying, and I can't say that there's one specific thing that I'm afraid of because I don't have.
You feel like it's too unknown?
Right. I feel like there are too many possibilities that could happen, and maybe they never will. Maybe they will. We'll see, 10, 15 years down the road that there's something that does come out, a study is done, and shows that there are real effects. I'm not willing to take the chance on those things when I know that there's something else that's more trustworthy, that's been around for hundreds of thousands of years and has evolved on a scale that's more natural and less screwed with by humans.
Yeah, let me put a cap on this because we are so over
Yeah,
time.
I've been trying to find a way to steer it back.
We need GMOs. GMOs have saved billions of lives. We would probably not be here were it not for GMOs.
Please clarify.
Well, I'm talking about old school GMOs.
Oh, okay.
We could not feed
No, I agree with
the
that.
population that we have without those GMOs.
Yeah.
54% in 2001, the World Health Organization said that 54% of all childhood mortality was attributable directly or indirectly to malnutrition. Now, the new crop of GMOs does not have quite the same bang in the developed world in terms of crop yields, but in the third world, it totally does because they don't have access to the same amount of chemicals and resources that we do. These things make real differences in the third world, and it's saving
What are you
lives.
talking about? Which ones make real
The-
differences?
The new ones.
I
like
The new
golden
ones.
rice.
Right. So not, like I said, not in places like the United States where we have
Mhm.
chemicals
Right.
that can handle all this
Sure,
stuff.
sure.
But in the third world, these are increasing crop yields
There's vitamin A.
and saving people.
Well, yeah, like there are areas where there's massive amounts of blindness because of vitamin A deficiency,
Okay.
and these do help.
I think that the real causes of hunger are more along the lines of poverty and
Yeah, that's true.
and lack of access to food and the lands to make them. So when you say that it's producing more food, a lot of the food that's produced by GMO means stays within the place that's producing it, largely the United States, and a lot of it doesn't even go into food.
Well, that's true.
A
But we're-
large, huge
I'm
chunk
talking
of-
about the GMOs that go overseas to third world countries, which they do.
Yeah,
And
there
they
is
make
there is genetic.
they make a bigger difference over there than they do here. And there are a lot of problems with farmers not using traditional protective farming methods to protect from creating super resistant bugs and weeds and things like that. Overdosing crops with chemicals because they think they
Sure.
can. But those are farming problems and not GMO problems.
I agree to some extent in saying that I think a better way to improve would be to provide them with better ecological farming methods that would provide more yield in a natural instance, rather than having them buy seed from
So
someone
you're
that's
going to
patented.
ship them the soil to grow it in too, because some of it is just counteracting the environment that they
That's
live
true.
in.
That's very true. Some of it is, and I'm not saying it's going to answer all the questions. I disagree on that.
Well, you're dumb.
So we are definitely way over time. We could talk about this for a
Done.
long, long time. Thank you for listening to Atheist Airwaves on the Corpus Christi Community Radio. We're sponsored by the Corpus Christi Atheists. Visit ccatheist.com to check out our upcoming events. We'll be at B&J's this weekend.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, you're listening to cccomradio.com.
Thank you to the local band YGO
Yes.
for our outro music. They have a music video coming out on December 24th, their first. YGOband.info, I believe. Go
Very
check it
nice.
out. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
He put it on an ass until the mother beagle. You're stuck in the past and it's desperate regal. So behind him, trying to kill the finger with the white gear. The streets are killing you.